pushing out some Zombicide Invader tactics, core tactics, up to my channel here in the playlist. And if you're new to the game, something to keep in mind, some tactica to consider. If you're returning to the game, if you're a fan of Black Plague or Modern, there are a couple of tweaks. Things should seem familiar. It is kind of zombie aliens in space. But with the updated rules and a couple of the tweaks to it, the tactica has shifted. And that's what I want to share my experience in playing this awesomely fun game. So in the core, Invader, we have the mold abomination, and we have mold tiles. So the abomination is the strongest alien in the game. When it appears, you need to deal with it right away, but dealing with it can be challenging in that it will take action resources to do it. Now, just for some history here, in previous versions of Zombicide, you needed specific weapons of a certain strength to be able to take on the abomination. And you can only find those weapons at certain points or by searching. It was kind of random. So early on in the game, you know how the spawn deck works. You shuffle up the cards, you're pulling the cards out. In previous versions of Zombicide, if you pulled out an abomination turn 2, turn 3, I have had it happen turn 1, you're not equipped for it. So the focus of the game changes where you're literally trying to run away as fast as you can until you can get some gear and deal with it. Invader changes it and gives you a rule where you can focus fire on specific targets. And focusing fire on the abomination means, in theory, you could kill it at any level. The challenge with that is the weapons when you're shooting to focus fire early on are very, very low powered. They're not experimental yet on there. And to generate the amount of dice that you need to hit to kill it, you might shoot everybody, all of the heroes, all the survivors, all the actors into it. You might shoot everybody into it and not take it out. Or, okay, you took it out, but you didn't kill any other aliens for that turn. It's there, but it's still potent. It's still risky. So they didn't make it binary. You can do it or you can't. You can, but it would behoove you to search and find better weapons and kind of level up. So that was kind of the first tweak on there. I was going to say you don't have to be scared of the abominations, but they are potent on there. The biggest tweak in the game, the biggest change in the game is this concept of mold. So you have this alien mold that's spreading through the base, and it destroys rooms. It removes their functionality for searching, for getting oxygen or other control points, depends on the mission. You can destroy the mold with certain effects, so you flip it over, and it's no longer active. When it's active, some of the spawns involve spawning monsters on the mold. Maybe the mold grows them, maybe they pop out, maybe it's a tunnel network. Who knows, right? That's up for the narrative on there. But you can be in a situation where if there's a couple of mold points on the board, which every mission starts with, and you pull out a couple of cards, they could spawn. They really could spawn a high amount of Xenos on there, and now you've got to deal with that, especially if they're the Seekers, the fast-moving ones, the ones that would have been a runner-class zombie in other games. So now we layer in the Abomination. When it moves through, it creates mold. And eventually, if the mold chain connects up, you lose the mission because it becomes overpowered. The base becomes overwhelmed. I've never really had that happen, but if an abomination spawns on another side of the board and it moves and it creates this mold chain, and then you destroy it, the mold chain is still there, you could go from starting the game and having 2 or 3 mold zones to by mid-game having like 5 or 6. And then you draw one of those cards, spawn tanks on mold, spawn workers on mold, and all of a sudden it's just this massive, massive spawn fest of it. Very potent on there. So what that means is I find that the biggest change is you need to deal with the abomination immediately when it spawns, because besides the fact it's tough and it could kill you instantly, it's going to create these mold zones, and at some point At some point, you're going to draw cards that spawn on there, and you can't have them. They're in play. Destroying mold is also important, but it's a little bit harder because you need specific items. Where backdating it in Zombicide, Black Plague, and Modern, when the abominations showed up, yeah, you wanted to fight it, but it wasn't spawning stuff. It wasn't interacting in the game in that way. It was just a super, super powerful monster. And even if you had the tools and tech to destroy it, you could choose to run away from it. And often that was the smarter thing to do on there. An interesting twist, an interesting change, an interesting update in the mechanics with Zombicide Invader.